Welcome, I'm Erin Cuthbert, footballer for Chelsea and the Scotland national team, and you're listening to the Blue Day podcast.
Fellow Chelsea supporters, here at the Blue Day podcast, I am delighted to welcome my guest on the show today. She made 151 appearances for the club, scoring 16 goals, plus she played alongside the likes of Sophie Ingle, Kylie Davis and Claire Rafferty. Here is Dani Bowman. Dani, welcome to the show. How are we?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, thank you for inviting me on.
No, the pleasure's all mine, Dani. Thanks very much for giving up your time today, because I know obviously busy schedules and everything. So obviously we want to hopefully get a decent show out of this. But what I want to sort of start off with, Dani, is what was the moment that got you into football in the first place?
I suppose, like a lot of people, I had an older brother who used to play, and my dad used to play, not to any great level. So going to watch my dad play on a Saturday and me and my brother having a kickabout on the side of the pitch, that was it. That's where I got the love for it, the passion for it. And then, I was very competitive with my brother, so it was always a competition who was better than each other. And yeah, I think my dad then took over my brother's football team, and I was lucky that I could join in with the boys, which, back then was great. And I think I was quite lucky in the fact that I didn't really get judged, even though I was a girl. Probably because I used to kick the boys harder than the boys used to kick me. So that was a sort of like a bit of respect in that sense. But yeah, it would have been watching my dad play, and like my family are a big Chelsea fan. They always have been. So then again, that was sort of the path that I sort of went. That was the first kit I had at Christmas, was a Chelsea kit, even though I think one year I asked for a red kit, so I had a Man United kit. That didn't go down too well at home, but that's part of being in a football family, really. So, but yeah, that was it. It came from that, really, from my dad and then my brother.
And who were your footballing idols growing up as a kid?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, the women's game wasn't what it was today. So for me, actually, I used to idolise David Beckham, like a lot of people, to be honest. But yeah, I used to watch him. I used to sit on a Saturday night, watch Match of the Day with my dad and my brother. And it used to be like, what's he doing? How's he kicking a ball? I literally used to like watch every single thing he used to do, the way he struck a ball, his footwork, everything. And then obviously now, if I look at it now, I think of how much exposure the women's game gets on TV. And like I've got a little one, and I love the fact that on a Saturday or Sunday, like this weekend was women's football weekend, and I think I got Ava to watch every single game on Sunday, whether she wanted it or not. But there she was, watching every single game. And like for me, that's what I want her to do. I want her to have idols like I did, but hopefully female idols. So yeah, that was it's hopefully now long term, young girls won't just look at the men's game and find men's players. They can look at, the likes of Katie Robinson or Lauren James or anyone like that, and they can then strive to be them when they're older.
Take us back to the summer of 2007 when you joined Chelsea from Arsenal. How did that move come about for you?
Well, I was studying at Arsenal Academy. I was in with the first team at Arsenal, but I knew I wasn't getting first team football, and I knew I probably wouldn't be getting regular first team football because of the fact that the Arsenal squad was the squad that won the quadruple. It had the Kelly Smiths, Alex Scotts, Faye White, Jane Ludlow. The list goes on. So I think I hit 18, and I can't remember how it came about in terms of how it approached, but I think someone contacted me and said, "Oh, would you be interested in coming down to the club? Like we'd like you to come and join for our first team." And of course, my dad jumps at the chance to go to the training ground because it was pretty much brand new at that point. So there we are in the car off to the training ground. My mum's come as well. Like the whole family's come for a day trip. Yeah, and I think it was Sean Gord was the manager.
Yeah,
I think
that's right.
Met him, lovely guy, made me feel very welcome, and yeah, and that kind of sold it for me. And then yeah, I went in. Obviously, for me as also a Chelsea fan, I was like, this is great. This is like what my family would want. So yeah, went in at the summer. I was quite lucky. I think that same summer, Claire Rafferty signed, and obviously I'd known her previous from England. So it helped a lot that I knew someone else going in that summer. but yeah, went in and I loved it. To be fair, it was first team football, regular, feeling a part of a project, because Chelsea probably wasn't. I mean, it definitely wasn't the team that it is today, but it was a bit of a project. But yeah, I was made to feel very welcome, and it was obviously I spent nearly 8 years there, so I enjoyed my time, and I was very lucky that I got to play in a few cup finals and meet many different managers and play with many different players. So yeah, it was obviously a part of my journey and a chapter in my playing career.
And your debut started off well for Chelsea. It was in a League Cup tie against Crewe, where you would score 2 goals. So not a bad way to make your mark.
I mean, I didn't even know that information, to be fair. So yeah, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't. I actually generally, I didn't know it was a League Cup. I mean, was that at the Met Police Ground?
Leave it might have been away.
Oh, then yeah, I don't know. Maybe I was there. I was there in body, but I don't know if my head was there. But yeah, no, I mean, I was quite. I think I played slightly more attacking midfield back then because I was young, so I had the legs to do it. As you get older, you sort of drift back in the pitch. So, yeah, it was. Yeah, I think I did. Yeah, I can't even remember that game personally. So.
In terms of when you mentioned about your international career as well, you got chosen to join up with the Euro 2009 women's team. How was that for you in terms of being picked and then the tournament itself? Because England did do quite well. We got to the final and then we'd unfortunately lose to Germany.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was actually probably a bit of a surreal period in my life, because previous to joining, I was with the England youth setup. So I think I was under 19s at that point. But then with the first team exposure, I then got called into my first training camp. So I went to La Manga, warm weather training camp with a few other under 19s. And then literally within 6 months of that, the next thing was a phone call from Brent Hill saying I've been selected for the Euros. After only just making like my first senior debut. It was a bit, yeah, it was actually crazy. I mean, I was in a squad with Farrah Williams, Katie Chapman, like Kelly Smith, and there I am pinching myself at like 20, being like, wow, I can't believe I'm traveling or going away with the team. I didn't get to play or get any minutes, but just being in and around it, being exposed to like international tournament football, being with a group of players for 6 to 8 weeks, it almost does become your family, because it's so intense. So I think we were quite lucky with the group that everyone got on with everyone, and it was a real good togetherness. And obviously it showed, because we got to the final. Unfortunately, obviously we lost. But that close bond that you get through being together for such a short period, I suppose I then could just go on and, I wanted it more. You get a little bit of a taste of it. Even though I didn't play, I knew that that's what I wanted to do, and I wanted to carry on, and I knew I needed to be better. So yeah, the Euros was just surreal, but coming off the back of the Euros, for me, it was then like, right, I need to step up. I need to be better. I want to get into the team. I want to get more minutes. So yeah, that's kind of how I saw it, really, in that it was, yeah, if I look back now, I think I was very fortunate and very lucky to have that opportunity.
Now, at this stage, we'll look at 2011, when women's football would change forever. It would be completely reformed, and there would be the introduction of the Women's Super League. You were still with Chelsea at the time. You were still playing pretty much every single week and becoming that influential figure. What was your thoughts on this new concept?
Excited, really excited. I think, we'd been through some tough times in the women's game where, we didn't have money. We barely had any fans. And actually the thought of like media getting involved, I think it was BT, was it BT Sport? Or yeah,
I think BT got it first. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I remember, because we played Arsenal first game of the WSL, and I remember we got a coach from the training ground to our match ground. And I remember turning up, and it was just crazy, absolutely madness. There was like fans everywhere, and it was like are they even in the right place? It was massive. And then obviously you now look at the league and the way that the WSL is, it's like one of the best leagues in the world. And quite honestly, everyone wants to play in this league because of the caliber that there is. I mean, obviously back in the day, it probably was just Arsenal who were the favourite teams, who had the strongest squad. But now you look at the league and you think any team can compete against anyone on their day. And like, I think results, and every single weekend you watch the WSL, you can see that for itself. So if I look back then and I think, okay, I think we only lost 1-0 to Arsenal. But actually, if you look at the bigger picture of the WSL, how it's grown and it's become so even, and the quality is just, it's fantastic to watch. And it's even better for the younger group and the younger girls coming through, that they can now see it. I mean, the fact that it's on BBC like every single week, and during the week you can literally watch any single game you want to on TV. So there's like the exposure is just fantastic, I think.
Chelsea in league terms wouldn't do that particularly well. They would finish sort of around about mid-table, but they did reach the FA Cup final in 2012. What was that like for you? What memories do you have of that occasion?
Yeah, it was the game against Birmingham, wasn't it, at Bristol,
Yes.
at Ashton Gate? Yeah, so I remember that as because we played Arsenal on the Wednesday midweek at the Emirates, and I can remember feeling like we absolutely got battered. Like, I think it was 5-0 or 6-0, and I think I was right wing, and I don't remember getting out of like our 18-yard box. That's how like relentless Arsenal was. And then we actually played Arsenal 3 days later in that semi-final of the FA Cup. Now you can imagine everyone was like, "Oh, we've just been pumped 5-6-0. Why are we even bothering?" Like the people were like, "Oh, it's a given. Arsenal are going to win it. Arsenal are going to win it." We turned up late. I think it was at Brentford's old ground,
Griffin
like not their
Park.
new one, but their old one.
Yeah.
We turned up late. We probably had a really rubbish warm up. It was like, "Oh, here we go. This is not good." And then something just clicked. And I remember our goalkeeper, Sarah Quantrell, had like the game of her life. And like, we beat Arsenal in the semi-final, which was completely unheard of. And like, we celebrated like we won the cup final. And then, yeah, obviously we went on, played Birmingham. First of all, the game was the hottest day ever. And for someone that's got strawberry blonde hair and fair skin, it wasn't a great game for me. I remember being like, we wore this long sleeve men's kit because we didn't have female cut kit. It was
That's
men's
right.
cut
Yeah.
kit.
Yeah.
So that's got rolled up. Everyone's got all their stuff rolled up. Everything's baggy. You're like, oh my God, I'm absolutely sweating. We was winning 1-0 until I want to say like the 85th minute. Helen Blizzard takes the ball down to the far corner and everyone is shouting at her, put the ball in the corner and hold it in the corner. There's literally a couple minutes to go. She crosses the ball in the box. Well, the next thing, Birmingham break, Kaz Carney's running, they're off, they've gone. And then Rachel Williams scores an equaliser, I think it was. Well, we was absolutely devastated. And then it goes extra time. Again, we go 2-1 up. And then again, Birmingham score really late on in extra time and it goes to penalties. Now, at this point, I'm pretty sure like I had heat stroke or something like that. And then, yeah, it went to penalties. Yeah, we missed a couple of penalties and Birmingham won. So I think it was the biggest kick in the teeth for us because we were so close to winning. And then to lose on penalties is just pretty rubbish, really. So yeah, that was my first experience of losing a FA Cup final, which wasn't great, but it's a great experience, and you learn a lot from it as a squad. Like, we learned so much from each other, and there was like some tough moments for players that were going through some stuff, and we had to try and help each other through. So I think that's kind of what football always does, doesn't it? In the hardest moments, it brings you together. So,
And it was shortly after this point where Emma Hayes would take over as coach. Was you surprised with the news of the managerial change, and what was your relationship like with Emma Hayes?
So in terms of a surprise, I think there was a conversation had with one player that we'd had previous relationships with Emma because she was our Arsenal Academy manager or coach. So I think she was in America, and I think conversation came up. Obviously the job role was there. I think the message went out, and then next thing we know, she's turned up. So I mean, I think her first experience of it probably after if you'd asked her the first 6 months, how's it going after we lost every single game when she first came in, she probably would have said, why am I taking this role? But again, I think she see it as a project, like most teams in the women's league. She see the potential and thought, I'm going to try and build something. And so it's very similar. I mean, to be honest, it is really similar to like Brighton and being here. And like Hope obviously came in with a project in mind and built it. And like the club itself it's the same, like the women's game itself. Every club, they see the potential. And I think Emma did the same thing. She came in, she saw potential. And obviously it's been a great success for her because she's, won God knows how many trophies at that club. And hopefully one day we at Brighton can do something very similar. I know we've got the potential for it. So, but if you'd asked her within the first 6 months, did she think, is this the right move? I think you might have had an interesting answer from her.
Different answer altogether. Yes. Interesting. Fast forward a little bit to the end of 2014. You would leave Chelsea after making over 150 appearances to join Notts County. What was the reasonings behind this move?
To be fair, I feel like me and Emma had quite a good relationship in the sense that she was quite honest with me at the time. I think I was mid-20s, mid-20s. And she came in and was quite honest and said, like, listen, you're not going to play as much football. She respected what I'd done and what I'd done for the club. But at the same point was very honest and said, like, this, it's just not, you're not going to have as much game time. And I think at that point, a 25-year-old who loves football, I thought, I'm going to take a step out of this now because I want to play. I want to continue playing. I don't want to sit on a bench. I want to play. I love football. I'm not the best when I wasn't playing, and I probably could be honest about that now if I sit back. But yeah, it was a real honest conversation. It was a really tough one. Obviously, meant I moved from being down south, which is where my family and my partner were, and I moved up north. So it was a real challenge, but it was something that I felt I needed to do for my own self, just because I loved the game and I was like, I want to continue playing. So,
just a couple of more questions before we do finish on this one.
Cool.
What have you made of the Chelsea women of today in terms of the team, the actual sort of club itself? What's been your sort of take on how progressive, not just the Chelsea women's side, but the actual women's football has progressed so much?
I mean, I think it speaks for itself, right? So the club, women's football, Chelsea women, they've obviously become a brand in themselves. And I think now what you look at is most football teams are a brand in themselves. So, if we can continue to make the brand look and feel and be as successful as you can, then let's do it. And that means external companies coming in, sponsorship deals, TV campaigns. The Lionesses are a massive thing that's obviously boosting the women's game. So, just generally women's football as a whole is just growing and rising and just flying. And I think everyone needs to just get on board, jump on it and just keep riding it, because it is only going to help this country long term, whether it be more trophies for the Lioness, whether it means more competitive WSL, because listen, we all know Chelsea has a very good squad. But this season looks like this is going to come down to goal difference, right? Mm-hmm. And even at the bottom, it's so tight. Everywhere is so tight. So I think if we can all continue to push it and strive it and get it going in the right direction for the right reasons, it's just going to help so much for this country. Because obviously men's football is what men's football is, but the women's football is there. It's thereabouts. And if we can all keep encouraging it and pushing it along and supporting it, because it comes down to everyone supporting it. It can't just be people in women's football. It has to be people outside women's football too, that like are willing to sort of put their necks out on the line for it and be like, yeah, this is something that we want to be on board with. And you know what? It might not always look pretty, or it might not always be like what we visually think it to be, but if we encourage it and keep going, I know full well, I look at our academy system here. The young girls coming through today, it scares me how good they are. Honestly, it scares me. And now as a coach, I just think to myself, oh my God, I cannot wait for the next 10, 15 years. Because these girls coming through are unbelievable players. And like we just need to keep like growing it and getting them ready for when they're ready for first team. So yeah, and the more exposure, the more like first team players we can have and be on TV and be in advertising. They're just going to be like, that's what I want to be when I'm older. Like, God, how strong is that? That's amazing.
Final question from me. How do you look back on your time at Chelsea Football Club?
To be honest with you, I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I got to play in some of the best stadiums. I was lucky I got to play with some of the best players in this country. I got to make friends for life who are now not just football friends, they're actually like almost my family. I got to meet some amazing coaches who I still have relationships with now. And, you know, I think that's the thing with football, isn't it? Like they'll always be there for you when you need them. And it all stemmed from being at Chelsea. So when it was tough times and we weren't getting the funding or the kit or the grounds, them tough moments is what then grows you to have them memories long term. So when you meet up for some food and you're like, oh my God, do you remember when so and so? Or do you remember this? Like that is pretty much what football is, right? It's like it's a memory. It's a fantastic memory, and it shaped me as a person and a player. So yeah, like it was a fantastic period for me. And yeah, hopefully one day my little one will be playing for Brighton or Chelsea or someone like that. And then I can be like, oh, do you remember? This is what mummy used to do. So yeah.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know. Not that I'm forcing it. I do keep throwing the ball onto her foot, but she just keeps putting it on the right foot.
Dani, I know time is very precious right now, but thank you very much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And yeah, lovely to speak all things Chelsea with you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
See you later.